Hi everybody, welcome back to Electric MandoLessons. Just kidding, I'm gonna get the acoustic in a second here, but I figured I'd pull this thing out for a little bit of fun. Got a bunch of folks in the chat already, great to see you all. I'm glad to make it to one of these. It's been a crazy summer and I haven't done too many of these Saturday live sessions, but it's always fun when I can make it. We've got Sheldon, Lewis, William, Jeff, Asya, Denise, Gregory, Matt, Matthew, and Jay Vincent. Great to see you all here. Yes, some of you have already realized that I am in fact not playing an acoustic mandolin. This is a 4-string electric mandolin that I picked up recently. It's just a little too cool to say no to. Yeah, it's fun. It's Fender. It's a recent Fender. So Fender made these in like the 50s, maybe in 60s. Definitely in the 60s. I don't know the exact years that they made them. And this is a reproduction of that. They started making them again I think in like 2012-ish. And I think they only made them for a couple years. I don't think they're still making them at this point. Not entirely sure. I got to do my research on that. But yeah. Little 4-string. I think they made an 8-string version as well, but this is the 4-string. Little kind of Stratocaster style Mandocaster. Sam Bush plays an old one of these every once in a while. It's always good to see him get that thing out. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. Matthew says, what kind of strings do you have on that thing? Probably because you realized it sounds lower than a mandolin. And what it is I've actually just got the whole thing. I've just got regular mandolin strings on it. It's just whatever came on it. So I'm assuming just regular mandolin nickel wound strings, regular gauges. But I kind of like the sound of it tuned down. So I've got everything down 3 half steps, or a step and a half. So it's E, B, F sharp, C sharp. So my G chord becomes the E chord. And just because I can, I'm going to turn on a little distortion for a second here. Alright, anyway, back to your regularly scheduled programming. I'm going to turn this thing off and move this mic around a little bit. And oops, sorry, hitting the mic there. Pulling out the acoustic. Because that's what I should be playing, because Tim just mentioned Maine Fiddle Camp. I assume we're talking about Maine Fiddle Camp, because that's about where I'm headed in a few short hours. Well, 26 hours, I suppose. Just a little over 24 hours, and I will be at Maine Fiddle Camp for 2 weeks straight. It's going to be a good time. If you haven't ever been to a fiddle camp, there's fiddle camps all around the country, and most of them are not just for fiddles, including Maine Fiddle Camp. So there's mandolins, there's guitars, there's basses, there's cellos, there's whistles, there's banjos. You name it, it's probably there. It's a good time. Lots of traditional music at Maine Fiddle Camp. It's kind of my favorite place to be. Wouldn't want to be anywhere else. And if you ever get the opportunity to go to a fiddle camp, I highly recommend it. It's really kind of like an immersion experience if you're trying to learn tunes. You really you'll hear that whatever kind of music you're going to camp for, you'll hear that music 24/7. There's endless jamming and just kind of ear exposure to that kind of music, and you'll come out a better musician than you went in, regardless of how much you play. But it's also a great excuse to just play and play and play and play long into the night. All right, we got some more folks here in the chat. Let's see who. What do I stop? Mike, Shari, Nilda, Susan. Thank you all for joining. So I see some new faces, which is always great, and of course a lot of repeat customers. The way these works is pretty low key. Just ask questions if you got them. This is a great time. I just like to do it mostly as a Q&A. I'll fill in any dead spots with tunes or tune requests. I'll do them if they aren't copyrighted and if I know them. So I can't do everything that's requested, but I'll do my best. And yeah, no question is too basic or too advanced. It's whatever you're thinking about, music or mandolin or practice or kind of inspiration related, musical inspiration. Happy to dive into it. Always a good time. I'm assuming everyone can hear and see me all right. Let me know if that ever changes. And we'll, so yeah, get out your questions and I will, I'll do my best to answer them. Tim says, I thought Fiddle Camp was last month. It was actually. Main Fiddle Camp has 2 chunks. There's 2 weekend sessions and a week session, kind of all back to back. So it's like 9 days if you do it all, but you can do just a weekend or just a week or the whole thing, whatever you want in June. And then in August, there's 2 separate week sessions that are back to back. So that's where I'm heading back in. I was there in June, and I'm going back tomorrow for 2 week-long sessions. And I'm playing a wedding in between them. We have Saturday off, and I'm going to be driving around playing a wedding, so I'm probably not going to be able to make this live stream, but I'll see you after that, and it'll be a good time. The tune I just played was Fly Around My Pretty Little Miss on the electric there. That's the tune of this live session, so at the end of the session, we're all going to pull out our instruments and jam along on that one a little bit. It's a great tune that a lot of people are going to know if you're playing old-time music. It's in the key of D. It's on my site if you like the sound of it, and we'll get to that later. Catch up with the chat a bit. Denise says, I just signed up for Great Lakes Music Camp. I've heard good things about that from a couple people. Overlooking Lake Michigan in October. Beautiful setting for Mando. Ooh, cool. That's a good... Woo! John Reichman, Joe Walsh, Don Julin, and Jason Wheeler. That's quite a lineup. I wish I could be there to learn from all those great folks. Cool. Susan says, I've never seen a mandolin like that. Yeah, it's kind of an uncommon little creature, but they're a lot of fun. That electric. Tim says, oh good, basic. I'm a beginner, watched all your I'm assuming technique videos, but still have trouble positioning my left hand for fretting. My wrist aches after practice. Okay, so I can talk a little bit. It's hard to say without, really like kind of seeing what you're doing. So this is a great opportunity to go to someone who's really like a dedicated mandolin teacher that you can really get face to face with, and they can take a look at your technique up close and in person. That's going to be the best thing. But I'll talk about a couple things. I think if did you say left wrist? I'm assuming that your left wrist is what's causing you troubles. I'm going to move around so one thing that you want to make sense, this is just a few guesses that are kind of popping into my mind. You want to make sure your wrist is nice and straight, and it probably means pushing the instrument out away from your body a little bit. So it's kind of pointing off to 1:30, 2 o'clock, if kind of straight ahead is noon. And what that's going to do is it's going to let your shoulder be nice and relaxed. You want your wrist to be nice and straight. You don't need to lock it straight, but pretty straight. So when I'm playing... It's my wrist is pretty straight. I'm not doing anything like that or like that. Both of those are really gonna hurt your wrist. And in terms of fretting, finding a nice comfortable position, making sure you've got a little space in behind your hand. And really what you're saying you're a beginner. Let's see. Where did you say that? So, if you haven't been playing that long, there's a lot of stuff that's going on when you first pick up an instrument. You're trying to get your hands used to doing all this really fine motor skills in here, and really both hands. So it's going to take a little while to kind of work on different aspects of your technique and get it to where it's comfortable. So what I'd say is lots of little practice times, play for 5 minutes, put the instrument down, pick it up an hour later, play for another 5. You know, if you do little chunks, it's going to allow you to just have the instrument in your hands for short periods of time, figure out what's working and what's feeling comfortable, and not playing so long that you're letting your technique slip. And just sort of the more time you spend with the instrument in your hands, the more natural it'll get, and it'll stop being uncomfortable after a while. But it definitely is good, you know, just to keep it in the back of your mind, like, oh, am I relaxed? How comfortable am I? Is there anything I can do to make myself more comfortable while playing this instrument? Cool, Jennifer says, learned so much from you. Thanks for all you've done. Thanks for watching. Glad you're enjoying the videos. Tim says, Great Lakes is closer to me than Maine. Check it out. Cool, yeah. And you know, anywhere you can go to find your local fiddle camp or music camp, by all means, try to get there if you can. I don't know if this is a question or a comment from, or like directed at me from Recovering Bassist. Good to see you, by the way. I feel like it's been a little while, but maybe it's just because I haven't been here. I do play pretty much every day. Not always mandolin, but some kind of instrument. You know, most days. It's rare to have a... Okay, and Denise says, okay, I think I missed something. Yeah, you know, if you can play a little bit every day, that's a huge benefit for your playing. Matt says, when you get a new melody like fiddle tune, how do you decide what to fill in around the melody to make it more interesting? Do you work it out with paper and notes or just improv? Haha, notes. I like your pun there. I don't write it out. I don't use paper. I'm a pretty slow music reader. That's something I would like to work on. But most of the music that I play is just by ear. You know, I think you had a nice way of framing it. How do you decide what to fill in around the melody? I think how I decide, like, what I'm really doing is just using past knowledge of things I've tried. So I'm using a lot of the same ideas and kind of tricks and moves with my left hand and my right hand. You know, with double stops. So I have a double stop series in the technique and fundamentals section where I talk about different ways to add double stops and all those ornaments. And a lot of that stuff just comes from trial and error, you know, trying a double stop and being like, oh, that's really nice. And then, you know, be like, wow, that was in the key of D. Maybe I'll try that in another D tune. Or hitting something and being like, wow, that was really not that nice sounding. I'm going to try not to do that anymore because it doesn't sound very good. And, you know, doing that with every tune that you come across, you know, I really recommend, you know, just letting your hands relax, so you can get more kind of strings getting hit with your right hand and trying some different ideas with your left hand. It might not work all the time, but if you consistently try it with every tune that you learn, you'll start to figure out what works where, and you'll start to build a kind of sense of your options and what you have, what kind of different ornaments and double stops and things that you have at your disposal, and then you can plug those ideas into new melodies. So, you know, if I can, at this point, pretty much once I have a melody down in, you know, and this is, so in the key of like, you know, C, G, D, A, a little bit in E, somewhat in F, I can get a lot of double stops and ornaments in there because I play a lot of tunes that are in those keys. Whereas, you know, if somebody throws me a tune in B natural or, you know, F sharp, I don't have those go-to double stops and melodic ideas in my fingers. So that's where I'm a little more at a loss of like, oh, I don't know exactly what to do here. I can try to, you know, make something that would sound like something I would do in the key of D, but it's going to require thinking about it because my open strings aren't in the same spot. And so, you know, you really, even down to what key a tune is in, is going to help you be familiar with what options you've got. So try it with everything you, try adding a little something to every melody that you learn, see what works, and a lot of those ideas will transfer onto your next tune. Dan has a great question. Hi from Newcastle, England. Love your choice of tunes. Any recommendations for pretty and fairly simple waltzes to learn? Sure. Let me just pull up my website here real quick. So you can search through my lessons by tune type. if you hover over lessons, it's the bottom right-hand corner. It says by tune type. Let's go down to waltzes. Some of the simpler waltzes in here. Happy Birthday is a good one to know. That one will be useful. Star of the County Down is often played as a waltz or as kind of a march. Skyboat Song is a really beautiful, nice melody. South Wind, also nice. Tom Bigby Waltz is one of my favorites and very straight ahead. And then some of the more complicated ones, Waltz for Two Friends, Shebeg Shamor, On Common Ground, Cosmo's Flight. Those are a little more notey, but at that point, if you hear one of those and you're really drawn to it, by all means, try to stretch to a harder tune if it's really going to keep you interested and engaged, and it'll be a great boon to your playing. Tim says, thanks, I am bending my wrist, and I do get stressed when I mess up, which happens all the time. Yeah, that's totally natural, and it just takes time thinking about it, having it in the back of your mind, and just trying to relax while playing. I often go back to the very basics after even playing. I've been playing for almost 20 years now, and I still go back to the basics because it's so easy to get kind of tight while playing and stressed out that, really just kind of going back to making a nice sound and being nice and relaxed while doing it is one of the kind of the fundamental ideas of playing music, and it's going to transfer all the way up to more complicated playing and ideas. Susan says, could you recommend several songs to learn for an absolute beginner? Sure. I'm going to go back to the same thing. I'm going to go to lessons on my website, Fiddle Tunes by difficulty, and look at the beginner section. Really, any of the ones in there, I would say listen through those. You can click on a link and then hear the play-along tracks, and that's going to be a good way to just kind of get a quick overview, like, oh, that's what this tune sounds like. Do I like it? Do I not? And then if you like it, give it a try. I think it's hard to say, I have like a beginner and an intermediate and an advanced section of kind of tunes, but those aren't all gonna be beginner or intermediate or advanced tunes to everyone, because it really, so much of this, again, like adding double stops and ornaments, it's all about kind of what you're familiar with and what you've tried already. So if you've played a million old time tunes and they're all in 4/4, and you go to play a jig, that's going to be hard. Whereas if you've been playing jigs your whole life and you go to try a reel, then that's going to be less familiar to you. So I would say just go through the beginner section on Fiddle Tunes by difficulty and see what kind of pops out to you. I'd say right off the bat, I would go with Spotted Pony is a great one. All of these are pretty straight ahead. Breeches Full of Stitches, Seneca Square Dance, Old Joe Clark, Liza Jane, Lazy John, Joys of Quebec, Jamie Allen. Most of the ones in that beginner series, I would say, go through my the beginner series where I kind of go through everything with like holding the instrument and kind of pick direction, things like that. Kind of get that beginner series under your fingers. Even if some of it feels a little repetitive to you, just it's kind of designed to get you to be as relaxed as possible. And then just jump into any of those beginner tunes. And again, even if it's not in the beginner series or in the beginner tune section, but if you hear a tune that really piques your interest, try to get that. Even if it's under the advanced section, if there's something that really calls to you, go for it and try to stretch your abilities. And you'll probably be more likely to get it because you're really fired up about that particular music. Nilda says, do you know any Brazilian songs? Jacob de Bandolim. I do not know any of those, but I love listening to that music. I haven't learned any of that. I don't know how to play that style of music, but I really enjoy listening to it. Let's see. Ooh, the chat just jumped. All right, chat is picking up. I will do my best to keep up here. Dr. Sandesh Doshi says, hi, as far as playing fast is concerned, I've realized that it's my left hand, especially third and little finger, which can't keep up with my right hand. Any tips to improve your left hand? Yes, that's totally, our fingers get less and less agile as we move away from our pointer finger. So, your pointer finger is going to be very agile. Middle finger is pretty connected. But, if you grab as you grab more fingers, like your pinky becomes pretty limited by the time you kind of are stopping all your other fingers from moving or like trying to move. It's like all these fingers are very interconnected, and as you get closer to the pinky, they get a little less agile. So I think the thing to do is find music that really uses those fingers a lot and kind of forces you to use your pinky and your ring finger. Some kind of scale-based exercises are the FFCP PDFs over at jazzmando.com. And I have some lessons on that. I think it's called Learn to Play in Every Key, where I talk about that system. It's in the technique and fundamentals section. And it's a lot of very kind of ring and pinky finger intensive exercises that'll really kind of force you to use your pinky and ring finger. And anytime you're doing something that's really intensive, do it for short periods of time, a couple times a day, even if it's just 60 seconds of like ring and pinky, and then moving on to something else you're more comfortable with, or just putting the instrument down. You don't want to sit there and do some uncomfortable pinky exercises for an hour. That's just going to be frustrating and not very good for your kind of your body. It's a little, it's like going to the gym, never having done anything before, and going and try to lift like 500 pounds. It's not the way to go about it. I don't know anything about going to the gym, but that just seems like a bad idea. Covering Bases says it has been a while, but question for you: what do you enjoy the most? Playing with a full group, just one or two other people, or by yourself? I think it changes based on, I kind of go through phases of, I think in general my answer would be one or two other people. I'm in a duo, Velocipede, with a fiddle player, Julia Plum, and it's something about the duo that I really enjoy because there's a lot of freedom to kind of do what you want and play off the other person. And the more people that get added, you get a lot more kind of dynamic opportunities, but it's harder to travel around. It's harder to get everybody together for rehearsals. It's easy to make the sound really kind of muddy really quick if everyone's a little bit off. Whereas I find it a lot easier to lock in with just one other person. Every once in a while I often like playing on my own with instruments that are a little less standard, like that electric mandolin or electric tenor guitar or pedal steel. Instruments that I'm practicing, I like to be able to really focus in on the sound I'm trying to create versus having, like being unfamiliar with an instrument and trying to work out everything else that's going on around me. That's a really good skill to work on. I'm not saying don't play with other people, but I like to balance playing a new instrument by playing on my own and then also playing with other people. And I also, I'm about to go to fiddle camp. There's going to be some enormous jams there. One of my favorite parts is every Saturday when everybody's packing up. No, sorry, Friday. When everybody's packing up and getting ready to go, we start a big kind of New England tune jam, and it's, it can be like 30, 40, 50 people all crammed under a tent, and it's big and it's energetic, and it's one of my favorite experiences every year. Mike says, how about a little Snake River Reel? I feel like I've seen that title around, but I don't know that one off the top of my head. All right, I'm going to catch up with the chat. I'm falling behind here a little bit. Sheldon's got some great suggestions for Susan on beginner tunes. Dan's Tune, good to see you, says, I noticed Adam Steffi plays with no pinky. How common are differences with use of the pinky? I find it easier to use on the guitar, and I use it sparingly on the mandolin. I think there's definitely... I haven't noticed that about Adam's playing. I don't doubt you in the slightest. I personally will sometimes move... I'll shift rather than use my pinky, especially in if I want double stops, so like in the tune Tennessee Mountain Fox Chase, in the third part, I like being able to get that. And I'll do that because it's a little more natural than doing it with the pinky. I could practice that. It's not too bad, actually. But often I'll find myself, when I want to get double stops, kind of shifting my picking around. And Adam plays with a fair amount of double stops sometimes. So I wonder if that's part of it for him. But yeah, it's common to, you know, shift around and find what feels natural to you. And I think that's okay as long as you're also keeping your mind open for when it's restricting you. You know, like if you're way up here, and you're often finding like, okay, I've got my pointer or ring finger on the 7th fret of the E string, and I really need to get back to that 2nd fret. You know, I have to do this awkward jump all the time. That might be a good way to sort of say, okay, I gotta start using my pinky so I'm not jumping all around. It's really restricting me by shying away from my pinky. But you know, there's some musical situations where you don't really need your pinky all that much and you can get away with not using it. I think it's good to have the facility rather than not. But that's not to say it's a hard and fast rule. Michael says, what are some of your favorite Irish tune medleys? I've noticed at Irish sessions they tend to do tunes in sets of 3, and I rarely know more than one of the 3. So people approach this differently. A lot of people kind of think of tunes as a set and will often play the same 3 tunes as a set all the time. That happens. I do that sometimes. You know, there's some tunes that I really like together. I think one of the things that I kind of on an ideal level like to do is I try to switch things around just to see if there's something I hadn't thought of that kind of pops into my head. It's sort of, you know, I kind of have a couple there's actually, I've made a video on it called I think it's actually a whole series, something about like how to create sets of fiddle tunes. It's got to be in the technique and fundamental section of my website. And I talk about different options about changing keys and things like that. And, you know, I think a lot of it comes down to personal preference. Like some people love changing from a jig to a reel and really kind of amping up the intensity of the music that way. That's not one of my favorite kind of moves, but that's not to say there's anything wrong with it. I really like playing tunes in the same key. You know, so I'm playing a bunch of D tunes, like jigs. I'll play 3 jigs in D, and not change keys and not change time signature. So, you know, you could take like, let's see, I'll throw, let's see, the rolling waves in D, jig, and I'll come up with another D jig. I don't know what it's going to be yet. The Rose and the Heather. And I'll do another one, the Black Rogue. I don't know if I've ever played that set together, but maybe I have. But that's kind of an example of what I like to hear in a set. The first tune was kind of middle of the road, and then so the first tune was the Rolling Wave or Rolling Waves. There's a couple tunes by that name, but that's, I think, the most common name for that tune. And then, so that's pretty like kind of, I would call it like kind of a medium intensity D jig. And then I went into Rose and the Heather, which I think of as just a little bit sweeter. I don't know why, it's kind of, they're pretty similar in intensity level, but there's something about Rose and Heather that's just a little more mellow to me. And then I went into the Black Rogue, which I think of as kind of a pretty high intensity D jig. Part of that is that first little line has this great kind of harmonically it's going. It's in D, but it starts really on an A chord. It's A and a G and a A. It's A and a G and D. It's A and G and A and G and D. So it's got this really strong 5 chord that really kind of kicks up the energy a notch. So that's an example of, you know, what I like to hear in a set of tunes. All right, I really got to catch up with the chat here because it's getting away from me. Where did it go? Oh man, I'm way behind. Talk a little on scale fingering positions, not open string scales. What I'm going to do there is just give you the simple answer of go look at those FFCP Jazzmando exercise sheets. Jazzmando.com, then look for FFCP. There's some great PDFs. Things really get pretty open-ended once you move off of open position and get higher up the neck. It sort of depends on what's coming next and what's come before melodically. There's some shapes that you can kind of count on, but that's sort of where that FFCP system is really going to benefit you by helping you kind of figure out where the best place is going to be to do what you've got in mind. Cool. Tim said that I picked up Angeline the Baker and almost have it by ear now. Excellent. Michael, thank you so much. Wow, I got a bunch actually of super chat donations. That's a way of sending me a couple bucks. Helps me continue to do live streams like this and put out new lessons every week. Really appreciate it. People also will often donate through PayPal and join as Patreon members, where you get a couple little perks as well, like patron-only versions of this live stream. And any of those support ways is really appreciated. So thank you so much, Michael. And I'm going to hit these other ones because I see them popping up. Andrew, thank you so much. Glad you're going to check in later, which brings up a good point. If you can't make one of these live Saturdays or can't make the whole thing, you can always watch it later. They get archived. They get into a playlist of MandoLessons Live. It's all good stuff. And so that's always an option. Christopher, thank you so much for the Super Chat donation and request for a very fine old-time tune called Coal Harbor Bend, which I will play right now. It's also on my website if you want to learn it. tune. A very sweet one called Coal Harbor Bend. Have Dog Will Travel, thank you so much for the super chat as well. I'll go back and make sure I'm not missing any questions from you guys. Dance Tune, thank you as well for the super chat. Really generous today, thank you. He says, you teach me more than any other, Baron. I appreciate it. I'm glad you enjoy what I'm putting out, and it's always great having you in the chat. All right, Have Dog Will Travel says, how hard should you be pressing down on the strings? I know, a stupid question. That is actually not a stupid question at all, and I actually made a lesson on this. It's a very nuanced question, actually. I'm going to go find what it's called. Relax and optimize your left hand. It's under the left hand techniques heading in Techniques and Fundamentals. And pretty much what's going on is there's only so hard that you need to push down with your left hand to get a good sound out of the instrument. And anything beyond that is just wasted energy that's going to kind of push, like, it's just more work than you need to be doing. It's going to be harder on your left hand. Because to play louder, it's not about your left hand, it's about your right hand. You know, you hit the string harder and it'll get louder, but if you press the fret harder, it doesn't get any louder. That said, everyone I know, including myself, plays as they get louder with their right hand, their left hand pushes down harder. And it's just a very kind of natural thing for our head to do, is sort of think like, okay, right hand is going harder, that means left hand needs to go harder. Which is not the case. So I have some exercises in that video, Relax and Optimize Your Left Hand, where you kind of go up the strings and just put your finger on the string. I'll zoom in a little bit. Just kind of place it and mute the string, and then push a little harder, and it gets a little buzzy. Still not clean. And then once you push a little harder, you start getting a clean sound. And once you're getting that clean sound, that's as hard as you need to push with your left hand. So it's good to do that exercise every once in a while and realize, okay, that's as hard as it needs to be, and everything else in terms of volume and intensity is going to be coming from my right hand. So I hope that's helpful. That's a great question. Okay, I'm going to go back because I know I skipped over some stuff to get to all those super chats. Alright. Alright, I think I'm back here. Gonna play that solo band. Mandolin 2 months ago. Cool! Marvin got a mandolin 2 months ago. Glad to hear it. Always good to have more mandolins in the world. Sorry for the dead air time while I catch up on the chat. I love it when I can't keep up. It fills me with a sense of excitement. Yeah, Marvin says I chose to start with Tam Lin. And that's a great, that's not what I would call a beginner tune, but if you've got the sound in your head and that's sort of the tune that really drew you to the instrument, then by all means, like, start with something that's a little more technically challenging. So that was from Marvin says I chose to start with Tam Lin. I mean, the reason that a lot of us get into music is hearing some professional do something really wild and fireworks. See, like I heard Nickel Creek and Chris Thiele playing the Fox back around 2000 and was like, I don't even know what that instrument is, but I want to do that. So that's like one of the first things I tried to figure out, was that like, and the break from the Fox from that Nickel Creek album. And it was way too hard, but I kind of got a sense of it and then kind of got drawn in different directions from there. So whatever draws you in, dive in headlong and allow yourself to kind of get obsessed with whatever it is you're working on. Miscovered Mountains of Home. I know I've heard that tune, Matt. I can't pull it off the top of my head. A lot of Irish tunes I can't play unless other people are playing them. Raymond says, what kind of pick are you using right now? This is and there's no, whenever I talk about gear, no, whatever it's called, sponsorships or anything like that. This is a Prime, I'll zoom in. It's a Prime, Prime Tone, a Dunlop Prime Tone. It's a 1.5 millimeter thick, big triangle. I do have some links in the description. They're affiliate links, so at no cost to you, I get a little percentage back if you go through there and buy. And I've got links to a lot of the gear that I use in the description. Recovering bass says, are you making chop chords or more open? I don't know exactly when that was. A lot of my chop chords are just double stops, 2 finger. So like a C chop chord would be 5 on the G string, 2 on the D string. And the G would be 4 and 5. F would be 2 and 3. And back to 5 and 2 is C. And that gives you a lot of that same sound of, or let's see, what would it be? But you're just using double stops. It's chop chords are more about the percussion than the note value itself. Boil and cabbage down request from Sheldon. Yeah, I'll play a little bit of that. Alright, I think I'm caught up to where I was. Alright, we got another super chat donation from Uncle Bobby. Good to have you here. Thanks for joining in. What is the best way to... David says... So I'll play a little boiling cabbage down after saying... David says, what's the best way to store your mandolin? Should I use a humidifier in the case? Is it safe to hang my mandolin? Or will the temperature ruin the wood? I mean, you do want to be somewhat careful with your instrument and not let it dry out, especially if you're in the desert. That said, super humid in the summer in Maine, and I've got instruments all over the place here. I think hanging them is a great thing to do, because then they're just there staring at you waiting to get played, kind of enticing you in. And even though it doesn't take that long to get an instrument out of the case, it is like one more step. Whereas I love having instruments on the wall because I can just pull it down, play it for 60 seconds as I walk by, put it back up, and it's more time with the instrument in my hand. I've got, in the winter when it really dries out here in Maine, I have a humidifier that I keep running to make sure things don't crack. That just kind of humidifies the whole room or the whole house. I live in a tiny little apartment, so there's only a couple of rooms in the place. But yeah, if you can have instruments out, I want to make a lesson on this. If you can have instruments out and on hooks, you're going to play more. Or, it can be on a stand. Just put it somewhere out and available, but still safe so that, people aren't going to knock it over as they walk by or sit on it, or pets aren't going to knock it over. You want it to be safe, but readily available, I think is the sweet spot of where to keep your instrument. Lauren, good to have you here. Catch up with the chat again. David says, my new Eastman mandolin is a dream to play. Glad to hear it. Eastman's making great stuff. Do I do much classical at all? Not really, no. There's some great classical resources out there. There's a great book by Marilyn Mayer called The Complete Mandolinist. There's also a classical online resource from Katarina Lichtenberg on ArtistWorks, I believe. So you can check that out. And I would ask over at Mandolin Cafe, there's a whole classical music section. I know very little about that side of the mandolin world, so I'm not the person to ask. Charisma says, can you teach tremolo? I can. I actually have a lesson. It's in the technique and fundamentals section. I'll just point you to that because I'm running out of time and we still all need to jam. But it would be in the right hand technique section. Third lesson down is how to play tremolo, and I go over some of the key aspects in there. Cool. Tim says Vivaldi in C major inspired me. I've heard Avi Avital, another great classical player, on this, but may never get to it. Yeah, give it a shot. You never know, you know? Sometimes with hard stuff, it sounds really hard and complex and complicated, and just getting, it's really, even if you don't get through the whole thing, you know, you get the first phrase of whatever it is that really is, you know, drawing you in. And it's really rewarding just, you know, get that first little whatever it is. And even if you don't continue through the rest of the tune, it's a great boost. But it's also getting that first phrase is like, oh, I got that. Let's just keep going. What's the next? And just work at it little piece by piece. Oh, yeah. I still need to do, I got sidetracked again and did not do Boil 'em Cabbage Down. Can I play it basic and then more complex? Sure, I'll do that right now. I'm almost caught up with the chat. Play a little Boil 'em Cabbage Down. Can I do that in G, D? I don't know a key. Or A? Oh, I'll play it in some keys. I'll look it up and make sure I'm doing it in the key that I taught it. Name. Where is it? Boil 'em Cabbage Down. It is in. What did I teach it in? A. All right, I'll play it in A. Do I have a second part for this? I think I just play it as a one-part tune. Yep. All right, so here is a little simple to complex of Boil 'em Cabbage Down. Make sure I can see myself. Again. With some double stops. A lot of open E string. I'm gonna start moving my right hand a little bit more. Some hammer-ons. Little slide. Low octave. High octave. There it is, little Boil 'em Cabbage Down. All right, I'm gonna catch up with the chat. Thoughts on mandriola versus mandolin, 12 versus 8 string. I have very little experience with 12 string mandolins. All I know is they're 50% harder to tune. So yeah, I don't have a whole lot of thoughts on that. Again, if that's probably more of like a bowlback classical thing. Assuming you mean, I don't know if mandriola is like still 3 courses, but 4 courses, 3 strings per course. If that's what you're talking about, I think that's mostly found in like bowlbacks and might be more connected with classical music. You could ask on the Mandolin Cafe forum. Charlie says, can you play the Losing My Religion solo? Unfortunately, I cannot. That's copyrighted material and it'll get flagged on YouTube. So I can't do that one. I appreciate the request, though. Is it always necessary to play triplets on an upstroke? I play Lilting Banshee using an upstroke and it sounds right, but after the Virginia, I can't quite get that right triplet sound. I've got some lessons on playing triplets, again, in the technique and fundamental section. It will depend. Sometimes you're going to want to go down, up, down as a quick little triplet. Sometimes you're going to want to go up, down, up. And practicing both, again, that lesson's going to help you kind of figure out where it's going to make sense. Is it all? I just answered that one. All right, I think it's time. I'm all caught up with the chat just in time to play a little bit of Fly Around My Pretty Little Miss, also known as Going to the Western Country, also known as Susiana Gal. 3 names, same tune, key of D. Way this works is we'll kind of pass it back and forth. I'll start out with the melody, and then you can play the chords while I'm playing it to get us going. Then I'll play the chords while you play the melody. If you're new to this tune, see if you can pick up a little as we go. And if you know the tune, just try to really kind of get a nice constant feel under your fingers. If this tune is old news to you, see if you can add in some improvisation or double stops or ornaments. You know, try to push yourself wherever you're at with this tune. Even if you've never heard it, just try to pick up a couple notes of the melody or a couple notes of the chords, and we'll have a good time. So, what is it? Fly Around My Pretty Little Miss. Key of D. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you're playing the chords, I'm playing the melody. A2. B. I'll play the chords. A2. B. I'll play the melody, you play the chords. I'll do some improv. You take it. Here we go. Try to branch out a little bit and see what comes out of your fingers. There's the B part. Play the melody. I tried to add a little harmony at the end, but got a little distracted. Probably not the most melodic harmony part ever, but maybe I'll have better luck next time. So, what do people want to play next time this happens? Probably in a couple of weeks. But it's been a great hour. Thank you all for tuning in. Give me your suggestions for what you want to hear next time, and I'll pick one of those, preferably something that's pretty straight ahead and is on my website. Oh, Uncle Bobby has a quick question here. can you show the chords you're using? Yes. So the chords I was using for D is 7 and 4. And then for the A chord, I was sometimes using 2 and 2. And I would walk up 2, 2, 4, 2, 6, 2, 7, 4. So that's like. 2 and 4, 6, 7. And then for the B part, I was doing 7, 4, 7 and 5 for the G, 7 and 4 for the D, and then 6 and 2 for the A. So 7, 4 is D, 7, 5 is A, sorry, G, 7, 4, D again, 6 and 2 is A. And so all my chords were just on the G and D strings. A little bit of walking around. And there you have it. Alright, a couple people are just joining now. Sorry you missed it, but you can always watch these once. It takes YouTube a couple minutes to kind of process it all, but these are always available to watch anytime. And maybe you can join us next time this happens on a Saturday in a couple weeks. The Battle of Hadrian's Wall, Black County Communion for some time in the future. I don't know that tune. I'll have to look it up. Well, I'd still love people to shout out what tunes they want to do next time, so we can get it in the list and have something planned. So don't be shy. Throw out whatever tune you've been enjoying most lately, and I'll pick one. All right, Denise says, how about Soldier's Joy? Great. Let's do it. Cliffs of Moher, also a great tune. Let's do Soldier's Joy. I think we've already done King of the Fairies, but you can always check. Denise makes some excellent PDFs. You can find links to them on my website. There's a little green button that says Live Q&A. You scroll down on the little pop-up, and you can get to the episode guides, and you can sort them by tunes. All sorts of great resources over there. Find what you're looking for. Because this is episode, what, 54, 55? There's been a lot of these. In any case, thank you all so much. Next week's going to be Soldier's Joy. Or, except it's probably not going to be next week because I'm going to be in the midst of summer madness. Oh, okay. We did Soldier's Joy a few weeks ago. Well, alright, so maybe we'll look and see if we've done Cliffs of Joy recently and we haven't done Cliffs of Moher. I feel like I'm messing up my tune names. If we have done Soldier's Joy and haven't done Cliffs of Moher, let's do Cliffs of Moher. I'll look into that and see what we have and haven't done. And we'll make sure we don't do any repeating, although nothing wrong with repeating. It definitely... Firmoy Lass is a great tune, but it's not on my website yet. But I'll try. It's a good one to add to the website. Alright, Charisma says, have you ever tried the Bollywood song, Something I Can't Pronounce? It's a great tune for mandolin. Can you make a tutorial for it? I am very unfamiliar with Bollywood music. I've listened to a little bit of it. I like to listen to it, but that's not my area of expertise. If you're interested in learning that kind of stuff, you could check out Mandolin Cafe Forum, and maybe somebody over there can help you out. Alright, I gotta head out. Thank you all so much. See you in a couple of weeks. Thanks so much for all the Super Chat donations and PayPal donations and Patreon supporters. I really couldn't do it without you. Stay tuned. There's new lessons coming out every week and lots going on. So stay tuned. Subscribe if you haven't already. And I will see you all in the next one. Have a good one.